สวัสดีทุกท่านนะครับ
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Assistant Professor Nattakorn Phewchean, or you can call me Professor Mick. And we have had a lot of conversations with OIC. Actually, I have been in contact with OIC for quite some time, and now it is a very good chance to join OIC. I have been working with OIC for quite some time, and because I am a university professor, so let me jump into the next page. As a university professor and lecturer, I have had many opportunities to conduct numbers of studies and researches. And since when I graduated as a researcher and as a lecturer, I would like to say that in the past, I used to spend a lot of time in research and finance, but now when I came to the certain point, I found that my knowledge could be applied to so many aspects of the industry. And one day, OIC decided to open up for more perspectives to help us further the insurance industry through the researchers. So I came up with a few thoughts, and I proposed my ideas to the OIC about what can we do, and we came up with so many ideas. And the point is, at the moment, you can see that in the insurance industry, let's call them insurance industry, including life and non-life, it is pretty much limited, and the development is, comparing with other countries, we are still somewhere in between. We are not that bad, actually. We are somewhere in between. We are trying to go much further, but from many studies, there are many components that we need in order to put together a solution or a product that really, I would say, really answer a particular question or challenge. And I have been through so many studies, and then I proposed my output to the OIC, and we found that there are so many things that we could do together. But the most important thing at the moment is, as you can guess, is about innovation. As you can see on the screen, as a lecturer and as a researcher versus the innovation, we have to look for a way to develop innovation for the insurance industry. And what we find mainly for a business to go further, we need to start with the business question. We need to start with the problem. And also for the insurance industry, we need to start thinking about what are the existing problems in the market. And we can start with the problem, then we can use the technologies or whatever tools we have at our hands to solve those problems. This is another very important part. The problem is quite easy for us. We can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that we see at the moment. But the harder part is probably the technology or the tools that you can use to solve your problems. Especially, sometimes you see the tools from very different perspective. I might see one tool in a way, a different researcher might see a different thing, even though it's the same tool. For me, I always think about a problem like, first I will try to think about whatever possible. I mean, from whatever possible, I mean all kinds of expertise. There are many kinds of tools and expertise, and I try to bring them all when I try to tackle a problem. And if we could put together all of these ideas and create a solution, it would be the best way to solve the problem. And that's why I put technologies in the center in this page. And the same applies for a business. If you ever have any problem, you may need to look for a tool or a technology to help you solve that problem. And we will find out more in the next few examples, which is part of my presentation today. So I will go through this step by step before we could come up with an innovation based on my experience, what we need to go through. And now regarding technology, Based on my study, we have been looking for different kind of solutions for different kind of problems. Now let us start with the problems that I would say problems that we found in the past. Actually, there are many studies, but today I have selected some studies to show you a few different point of views as a regulator and as an academic, but not in terms of business like many people around here. But I just want to show you that for insurance industry, you can apply some of these ideas to your business. For example, let's start with the first question. As a consumer, in the past, insurance could be something very scary for the majority of the people. People were afraid of insurance. It's better today, but we have to admit that there are still a lots of people who, I would say, they hate insurance. They don't even want to get involved in insurance at all. Now, thinking back about what we have seen in the past, the OIC or the associations like Life General Insurance and Life Insurance Association, everyone actually have been trying to improve. They want to make insurance something more widely accepted because we know that it is very important. And we have seen many problems in the past, and one of the problems was actually a very simple question. What is the best life insurance that gives you the best return? Because I am working in applied mathematics and actuarials. And actuaries are people who use those mathematics, you know, those kind of probability and calculus, applying all kinds of mathematical principles in order to look for the best solution to mitigate the risk or to deliver a product within insurance industry. And that's a kind of mathematics, that's actuarials. And in order to answer this question, which life insurance gives you the best return? Actually, this is a the most popular question for everyone. Let's say you walk around today's event, you can see so many companies and they offer you maybe some policies or some plans and you don't know what to choose, right? You don't know how. In the past, people tend to think about, a tool. There was a kind of mathematic tools to help you to do some calculation and see the return on your investment. For example, financially speaking, let's say it's a financial point of view. Sometimes you use IRR. Some of you might not know what IRR is. IRR is a very simple mathematical formula that tells you the return on the investment in a particular way. But realistically speaking, IRR or these financial metrics is only applicable when everything is perfectly fixed. For example, when you think about the investment, like if you invest this amount of money, you should get this much money at that certain period of time, and then only then you can calculate your IRR and then how many percent of your IRR is. For example, when you invest in, let's say, I don't want to use the fund as an example, not mutual fund, but maybe something more permanent or more stable, like government bonds, for example. Okay, let's say you know that you spend this much and in many years they will give us this much return. That's where you can use IRR to help us calculate the actual return using IRR, pretty much like interest rate. But in reality, when you think about the insurance policy, so let's talk about life insurance policy, there are so many uncertainties because when you invest a certain amount of money as the insured, when you invest your money, your return from each company, let's say everyone here, for example, may vary. It may vary. You might get this amount of money at that point of time. Maybe there's an accident. Maybe you can get some benefits from certain providers. There are many uncertainties in the mix, and as a result, what we have seen in the past, we have been using IRR, which was a financial tool to help you determine the benefits. It is very rough. It's not very thorough. Even though it is a very good tool, but it is not that applicable. Even a simple question like this, what is the best life policy? okay, we have option A, B, and C. If you ask this question, if you have some knowledge, sometimes you get the IRR. Okay, sometimes you might ask about IRR and they may say that 3%, 5%. It can help you maybe get a better picture, but that's only good for comparison. But in reality, IRR is not that precise. It doesn't always give you the right number all the time. It doesn't always tell you that, okay, this one gives you less IRR, so it is bad, and this one is giving you better IRR, and that's better. No, there are more about insurance. There are services than many other factors. But at the moment, when you ask about this question, let's answer this question in terms of mathematics. Do we have any tool to help you determine whether if this policy is better than the other plan, for example? But this is just the beginning. This is just one of the problems that we have been trying to figure out. So let's say if the customer asks you which one is better for them, what can you do? There must be something that you can use. Maybe there's a tool to help you determine whether if it is a better option for your customer. As a professor in applied mathematics, we have been trying to develop these kind of tools too. Because we start with the problem, the most important thing is technology. We start thinking about whether if there is a possible technology or tool to help us provide the best answer to this question. And here's one example. Don't worry about the complexity. I know that it looks very fancy, but it's not that fancy as it looks. It is a kind of formula that actually some of you might have learned about this in the high school, but in the end, what we are trying to look for from this formula is we want to think about in case if we have a lots of uncertainties in a lots of periods of time. This is like probability lesson in high school. We apply the same principle, but we use a different formula. We have been trying to think about something else, not just IRR, something that could give you some numbers for return. We try to make it look like interest rate to make it simple, but it makes much better sense. Why do I say it is much better sense? You know, normally when you study finance, IRR is okay, this is 3% return, and that doesn't make sense in reality. IRR is only applicable when everything is constant. If you want to use this formula, we want to use with something which is not constant, which is not reliable, and it is truly applicable to your insurance. I mean that we have a lot of agents and people in the insurance industry here. So if you want to compare plan A with plan B, if you use IRR, you get one answer. Yes, you might be able to tell that to your customers, but in reality, if you use a better formula, something that is more applicable to your product, and we have been developing this for a certain time, and the result might not be the same. What you see on this page is when you tell your customer about your life insurance plan, the red line is IRR. IRR will be pretty much low, I would say. It's very low in this chart, it's very small. But when you think about that new tool, I call it Life IRR. I try to throw a new name, so just make it simple. So let's call them Life IRR as for now. You will get a different result, and the trend will be totally different, especially during different age range. And I try to say that in reality, it doesn't follow what we have seen in the past. So as an agent, if you tell your customer this one is better than the other one, if you can use some better reasons that make more sense to our customer, it will be better, right? But I always say that it depends on a lot of uncertainties. It's not that everyone will get this precise return. Different plans has different policy. Different policy gives you different return for different gender, age range, and timing. It doesn't mean that two people will get the same result, right? So the return will be different even though you use this formula. And that's another issue. And we have done some research in order to help you accommodate your customers. And we have already proposed to OIC because this is very useful for our consumers in Thailand. We can tell them that maybe this plan is better than the other plan with this tool. So if we have a solution that could explain to them that this plan is better for them than the other, it would be great, right? Now, when it comes to this kind of, mathematical modeling or formula, we try to add a few more factors into this tool or technology, and we call them InsurTech nowadays, right? We want to help making this tool to become very simple for everybody could use. and this one has just finished last year, and it is a kind of application that allows you to search for plans and policy based on OIC's database. Let's call it OIC database. Our companies are submitting their plans and policies into OIC's database, and we could use this application to help you find out the best one for you. But it is still under development. I like the name. It's still on a journey. We still need a long way to go. There can be next 1, 2, 3 versions that can be much better, but this can be a very good start. As a person, as a researcher, we need to think about how can we further the industry through our tools of the trade. And this is one of the example of the tools that we have delivered for life insurance. And we have another question. And the project is still under development. I have another example, another very interesting question. One of the biggest one, I would say, can it be called like chicken and egg question? When you go around the street, just like in this event, your customer, they don't want to talk to your agents actually, right? Even in the shopping mall, everybody wants to go away from the agents, and the question is why? Why in more developed country, most of the cases, they have a very good conversation because everybody needs insurance. But it appears that in Thailand, we have suffered a lot of consequences from the past that led us to a situation where most people try to avoid insurance agent. They don't even want to talk about the insurance. And the simple answer is maybe in the past there were a very small amount of agents who did something not very nice, and they broke the ethic, and they caused a lots of I would say bias for insurance. And even talk about insurance, I believe that you understand what I mean. When you talk about insurance, people talk to you about insurance and you just want to go away from them. So since the past, there have been this kind of noise because of the past, but today I think things are better now. And for example, why agents are trying to sell their insurance and they try to say something which is not politically correct or which is just plainly wrong, and people feel like they are being tricked because of the agents. And sometimes they are trying to attract people or trying to persuade people to buy the insurance, but using a wrong reason or logic, and people misunderstood them. I mean, some people believe that they might get interest rate, yes, but technically speaking, you should not talk about interest rate at all, right? In practice, you cannot do that. So all of this issue brought us problem that we see today. People don't want to talk to your agents. So for this problem, I have been thinking about what can we do as a consumer. So on behalf of the consumer, let's say I am a consumer too, because we start to think about something on the other side. How can we make the consumer feel like they want to talk to your agents? At least they should be more comfortable talking to your agents. And one of the biggest problem nowadays is related to finance as well. So when you start talking with the agents, and let's say non-life, they ask you to transfer the money to a private account. So you need to understand that they don't understand the processes. They don't even know why they have to do that, right? So this is a problem. And we see this kind of problem happens all the time. So the question is, as a researcher, for me, as a lecturer or as a researcher, what can we do in order to help OIC to find a solution? How can we help them to talk? So maybe I would say maybe, a big maybe. That was just the beginning, this is just the beginning of the process. Maybe we can use certain technology. We have something what we call natural language processing, or NLP. So what is NLP? Many of you already have your Line chat account. Many of you already have a Google keyboard where you can use your microphone to type with your voice using Google keyboard. The keyboard will turn your words into letters. And Google is smart enough nowadays to understand you and to translate and transcribe that into letters. And I was thinking whether if we can use this technology, and when the words could be translated into letters, maybe it could be helpful for us. So when you talk to an agent, for example, if we want to turn the conversation into text rather than conversation. It is very simple. We have so many technologies and the accuracy is very good at the moment. Maybe we can convert all of those conversations into letters. And what's next? So how can we solve the problem that we used to see? Okay, people say that they were afraid of fraud because of the agents were unethical. So first we start by collecting the data. So as I say, this is going to be very big and we have just started. Natural language processing requires a lot of data and we have just started because we want to look for a way in order to put together all kinds of data to create a database that we can use. And this is, I would say, it's very difficult. We have started for a while, but we have gone through those disputes and those conversations that actually went to the court. We try to look at all possible cases and there were a lots of them. And there were many other issues. Sometimes many people license were being revoked because they used just simply wrong words. Maybe they didn't intend, it was intentional or unintentional, but there were so many cases that went to the court because of the word selection. And so for all these problems, it's actually because the way the agents trying to, they are not being careful about the word that they use. That's why we see this problem. Maybe it's a very small problem, maybe it's something very big, but the problem is still here. We still have the same problem and we still have a lot of disputes. We have like thousands of cases in the past year. And many cases were actually because of the conversation and people felt like it was not okay. So with this new technology, I have been trying to put together a database to look for the choice of word that cause us issue. We put together numbers of statements that people used, like okay, can you transfer your money to my account, for example. These kind of statements or sentences that caused issue has been selected and categorized as you can see on the screen. And it actually came from one of the announcements from OIC, and we try to follow those conditions. And after we have developed our database, we try to apply that NLP technology to transcribe your conversation into text, and we cross-check those texts with this database. But it's not that simple, as you can tell. We need another technology, and many of you might know about this technology. It is called AI to help us, and all of this machine learning. And we need to find a way how can we change those text files into sentences, just like transcribe the conversation between you and agents, turn those words into letters, and we can use those letters and cross-check with our database after we have done the verification. So it's not that easy. Sometimes you use different kinds of words. Sometimes you use the same word in different contexts. You might say that, hey, this is not interest rate, and we call it interest rate, right? Because we find interest rate. But actually they say that it's not interest rate. He say the same thing in the right way, but it trigger the detection. On the other hand, the other people might say that 3%, 5% interest rate, which is not right. We see that, so we need an AI to help us, or machine learning to help us capture the sentence and to help us verify after we have converted all those words into letters, if that's okay or not okay, if that's bad, if that's good. So we need to use AI and machine learning to support our study. And we have developed numbers of mathematical modelings to help us figure out, so we could provide the best solution to us, so we could find the match with the database, for example.
So this is the Sigma. This is the few examples that I would like to show you. Now we have the OIC Phewchean application, still under development, have not yet been launched, but this is only a few interfaces that we have on this application. We are confident that it can help consumers and also agents and brokers, as well as insurers, whether they are life or the general insurers. So this project, we expect that it can help the society at large. For this application called Phewchean or OIC Phewchean, you can just turn it on, and then You can just tell your broker that we'll need your consent on the PDPA, and then you can record the conversation. But it's not going to be in the voice file because it's going to be transcribed into words, and it's going to be checked against the database that I described before. Are there any errors or the potential of the fraud case? So we can do that with the AI, machine learning, working together. And then we can find out whether the word that were transcribed as text, as you can see on the screen, there would be some trigger point that will be identified as the potential fraud or anything that can go wrong, then it's going to show in yellow font or red font because it's still a presumption, but it's going to alert the conversationalist so that they will see that something may be wrong or can go wrong. The customer can also review this, and once the broker says that please transfer the money to their account, and then it will flag the red fonts, and then it will give you a tip that this may not be okay. So the broker may have to clarify further, and also we can provide you with the knowledge that you cannot transfer directly to the account of the broker. You have to transfer the money to the account that have insurer's name on it. So this can help more or less, and we think that it can help more in the future. It's going to be beneficial to the consumers, of course, while brokers, they may feel that it may be the obstacle, this application, but actually it is something that will remind you to be more careful when you have a conversation, because this can be evidence, but the evidence can go for you, not against you, in case there is a lawsuit, and it will become a kind of intermediate, like you have the OIC officer being with you in all the cases of sales. So this will be a solution that we can use and can help you with the technology to solve the potential problems or cases. So we hope that after we have this application, we can reduce the cases of the dispute from 8,000 to a less number, because brokers will feel that they will have to be more careful when they have conversation with any potential customers or buyers, and it will provide safety for the communication between the brokers and also with the consumers too. Lastly, it's about whether you are in any business, because I am the outsider and I have the objectivity in my perspective, but I have expectation working with the OIC that we should have the technology or the center of development and research for further development in an industry or in an organization that will help with the expansion for use widely in the industry. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nattakorn ผิวชื่น